it's Carly and I'm back again with another review. So in my last video, I asked for you guys to comment in the comment section which of the No Way Home figures you'd like me to review next, and I only got one reply, and so that's what we're going with today. We're going to be looking at the Morlun figure. But before I get started on that, I want to thank you guys all so much for being here back on my channel again. Now that I have a much more regular uploading schedule, I'm going to ask that you guys use the comment section to tell me which figures you'd like me to review next. I've been told by several of my subscribers that they're not getting notifications for my videos, and I think if we can get some engagement in the comment section, that would really help. So if you would please, after you finish watching this video, drop a like and comment below which figure you'd like me to review next, and I will absolutely do the one that gets the most votes, even if it's only one. So that's that, and let's go ahead and get started. We'll take a look at our Morlun figure. So Morlun is a character that I was not familiar with at the time that I purchased this series. He is a psychic vampire. I had to do some research to learn about him, but he and Peter Parker fought. This character was first introduced in 2001. And his story is really, really interesting. So the psychic part of his vampire abilities actually work through touch. And when he and Peter Parker fight the first time, he gets his hands on him, is able to like punch him. And through that physical contact, he has a psychic link to Spider-Man forever and lets Peter know that no matter where he goes, he'll always be able to track him down. He has this sidekick named Dex, and they work together. It's sort of like a bumbling sort of Igor type figure who's his sidekick. He's not like the sharpest tool in the shed, but he sort of just does his bidding. And Morlun is able to track Peter down over and over and over again, and he's stronger. At one point, Peter mentions that Morlun's punch is the strongest punch he's ever felt, which is really kind of saying a lot. So no matter what happens in their encounters, Peter is just not able to get the upper hand on Morlun, and it seems like he might have finally ultimately met his match until he discovers, by getting a sample of his blood, that Morlun's blood is actually comprised of all of the DNA of every animal species on the planet. Now, this is where the story got a little bit convoluted for me. I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, so if I'm missing something, please correct me. But based on that information, Spider-Man was able to discover that radiation would be the thing to fight him with. And because he was bitten by a radioactive spider, and his spider totem was altered because of that, he injected himself with radiation, lured Morlun in to bite him, and when Morlun bit him, the radiation in Spider-Man's blood actually started to break him down. So as they continued to fight, every time he came into physical contact with him, it wasn't just the psychic connection that he was building up, it was building up radiation in his body that slowly but surely sort of turned him into dust, allowing Peter to win. So he begins to come back, I think, or he returns to life, and then it's his sidekick Dex that actually puts him down once and for all. So that's kind of an interesting note. I'd like to know what that was about. Maybe he wasn't as bumbling, and maybe once the psychic link between he and Morlun was broken, he was able to get himself free. But he does return. The stories get a little convoluted for me from there, but I'm really interested in his abilities. The psychic element of it is really interesting to me, and where all of his strength comes from, and how he has all these different types of DNA. So there's a lot of questions, but he does sound like a pretty intriguing character. I do have to say, though, that the character design is pretty boring to me. Now, while this Marvel Legends iteration of the character looks really great, the actual Marvel design of this very, like, sort of stale Dracula-esque character just doesn't do it for me. There's nothing unique about this as a vampire character. And I will say that it is disappointing that, you know, his only identifying features are really his pale skin, his red eyes, and his fangs. And on this figure, we're not even getting fangs. He's just sort of making a face. He does come with an alternate head that is more of a snarling face, but even that is lacking fangs. So I feel like that is a really big miss on Hasbro's part. It's obvious that this character is a vampire just by his attire because it's so stereotypical and so cliche, but not having fangs is just a huge oversight, and I really kind of am bothered by that. Moving on to the articulation, Because of his hair, we're going to be missing some articulation in the head. He also has this really like high built up shoulder pads in his jacket. So you can see the motion that we're able to get is very, very limited. Up and down, that's really it. Left and right a little bit, but we're not getting any sort of tilt, and you're not going to be able to go all the way around, which you may or may not want to do with a vampire character. I always just like to go through the paces. So again, we've got a little bit of obstruction in the shoulders because of the jacket, but when you turn, you're able to go ahead and you can work through that very easily. And the articulation itself is really smooth again. So we've got really smooth. You can see how easy it is for me to manipulate all of these joints, how completely they move, and everything works just the way that it's supposed to. He does not have an ab crunch. I don't really think that would be necessary for this type of character. The waist is fine. We have a good range of motion in the hips here. Obviously, we're turning from the hip to get like the full extension. That is just how things are going now. I think it's because they've built the torsos better, so we're getting less of a space between the tops of the legs and the actual hip joint. So in order to get that like height now, on all of the figures, you're really having to manipulate from the top of the hip joint, which works fine. The thigh works fine. And we have knees that work great. No boot turn on this guy, but a very functional foot and ball joint on his ankle. So the articulation on him is fine. We know when we have tails that there's going to be a little bit of a hindrance there. And because Morlun is such a great fighter, you might, if you're really familiar with the character, that might be an issue that you kind of have to find a workaround. But the articulation itself is really effective and smooth. Because he is so cliche and generic looking, I think that you could use him for any sort of Dracula character that you were wanting to photograph. So if you're not familiar with Morlun, I think that he's still worth picking up, not only for the armadillo part, but just to have a vampire in your collection. Although you would have to paint fangs on him or sculpt some on. That is just a tremendous oversight that I really can't forgive. That is the only thing really about him that makes him unique, is that he's a vampire. So to not have fangs is a mess, but overall, the figure looks really cool. For being a figure or a character that I don't really know that well, I'm still, you know, pretty happy to have him. I think that he'll be a great addition to my collection as far as just general photography goes. I'll be able to do some interesting things with him. I don't think I'm going to worry particularly about putting him in my Spider-Man collection. And the research I did didn't get me super excited to read his story, but it is an interesting addition to the lore, and maybe at some point I'll go back and try to find those stories. But overall, he's a pretty good addition, and nothing will probably compare to the Miles in this series, but if you need a vampire, Morlun is definitely worth looking at. So that is the second review of the No Way Home Spider-Man Marvel Legends collection. Tomorrow I will be doing another one based on the comments that you guys leave on this video. So please make sure to subscribe to my channel, turn on your notifications, like this video if you liked it, and comment in the comment section below what figure you would like me to review next. I'm working my way through the No Way Home series, one video every single day until we get to the armadillo, and then I'm going to be continuing on after that to probably the supervillains or whatever you guys would like to see next. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's always a pleasure. I'm having such a great time doing reviews for you, and it's great to get in touch with everyone again. I can't wait to do another one, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, friends!